I've been offering a series of messages now over the months that I'm here. And the overarching theme has been take up love's discipline, the discipline of divine love. And I have a description that I wrote early on for the series that is, there's a light in the heart that will direct our life in the highest way when we take up love's discipline. And this is a capital L. This is a spiritual discipline of divine love. It reveals the divine reality and turns our attention to what matters most. It shows us the way of healing, of forgiveness, and the fullness of joy. And I was inspired as reading this new book that has come out on radical love, teachings from the Islamic mystical tradition, poems translated by a scholar, Ahmad Safi. And he wrote, for the mystics of the path of radical love or ishq is not a sentiment or an emotion. It is the very overflowing of God into this realm. So love is not a sentiment or an emotion, this divine love, this radical love. It is the very overflowing of God into this realm. It is the radical love that erupts out of God, bringing us into being. It is this love that sustains us, and it will be the cosmic current that will carry us back home. So it is not an ultimate that will one day carry us back home. For the mystic, it is the current that carries us back home all the time, right? And also this mystical view of creation, which we have in our tradition of Kriya Yoga as well, is that there is not God and creation. You know, God didn't make something that is creation, but creation is an emanation of God, so that we understand that there's no separation. So it is not, we're here and God is there. There's one ultimate reality that expresses itself as all that is. So what does that mean for us? It means that God is our life. And as the mystics say, you know, closer than the jugular vein, closer than our breath, the heart of our heart, the breath of our breath. So there's no way we can be outside of that divine reality, which is expressing as all that is. Now, for this series, to try to keep myself on track when I'm going to offer a series of messages, I give myself titles in the months ahead, and then I come back to them. And I was surprised and not surprised to see that my title that I had selected several months ago for today is a prescription for healing the heart. And of course, I had no idea that it would be the prescription that I would need at this time. You know, having just experienced the passing of my spiritual teacher, my guru, Roy Eugene Davis, my teacher of 40 years, and which is a tremendous change, you know, a tremendous time of change and challenge and transformation and awakening. And time for the heart to have medicine. So what is the prescription for healing the heart? And also, some of you know, I just went back to Georgia, to his retreat center there, to participate in the memorial service for him, which was really sweet. You can see it online now. And I had planned to stay there for several days after on personal retreat, just to have time, right? But the day before the memorial, I got a call that one of our family members was nearing transition, a sudden time. And so right after the memorial service for my teacher, I got on a plane and headed back to California to be with my family at that time. So along with the title, I always put, okay, what is the scriptural reference that I have? So here was this title, the RX, the prescription for healing the heart. And I had instructed myself months ago to turn to page 13, which has a verse from the Quran. And it's a very simple and profound verse that says, "The remembrance of God brings serenity to hearts." The remembrance of God brings serenity to hearts. I've been thinking about that phrase and what it means, as a mystic. It really means that if you are in remembrance of the divine, if that is where your heart and mind is, you can't be troubled by anything, because the mind can't be someplace else, right? There's a saying in the Christian scriptures that perfect love casts out fear. Perfect love casts out fear. So it's a similar teaching that when you are anchored in the awareness of the omnipresence of the One, you are relieved of your sorrows and your suffering. So it's a remembrance of God that brings healing for us. And there's a similar verse in the Bhagavad Gita in the 9th chapter, and this is a version of it written by Stephen Mitchell, which I like and I return to often. This is the voice of the Lord as Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. "I am always with all beings. I abandon no one. And however great your inner darkness, you are never separate from me. Let your thoughts flow past you calmly. Keep me near at every moment. Trust me with your life, because I am you more than you yourself are." So I wrote an email to a friend, a spiritual friend, and I said, "I am riding the rapids of change in my little boat of devotion." And my friend wrote back, he lovingly responded, "As long as you are in the boat of devotion, the ocean of material life and its tidal waves can easily be crossed. The tailwinds of your Guruji's blessings will help you reach faster and safer the other shore, the land of bliss." So I always like to reflect on the metaphors that come to me. So I started thinking about river rafting, which I did once. So I get credit for that. But I am aware that I do not like sports where when you arrive to engage in them, there's a person there who informs you that you could possibly die. And it is their duty to inform you, and that would you please sign a paper indicating that you have heard that you are on this fun adventure in which you may possibly die. So that was my one experience of rafting. And but my husband, Amarnath, as you know, he went river rafting many, many times. So I asked him about this. I was thinking about my friend's comment, just stay in the boat. And because I had blocked out much of my experience of river rafting after that announcement that I could possibly die, I asked him, what did they tell us about how to stay in the boat, in the rapids? And he said, well, I don't know about that. He said, I'm not even sure they instruct you on how to stay in the boat. They instruct you on what to do when you fall out. Because that's likely. So there are several instructions about what to do when you fall out of the boat when you're river rafting. The first is, of course, don't panic. And the second is to orient yourself to the flow of the river. And to do that by being aware of going feet first, and so that you can float down the river in the rapids. Feet first. I read one instruction online that said you should try to have visibility of your toes. That's a good way to do it. Just be feet first going down. Don't try to be head first. That's always good spiritual advice for us. You know, don't try to be head first, right? That's how we get ourselves in trouble. So feet first, go with the flow. Don't fight it. It's the basic instruction. Don't try to swim your way out of it. Don't try to stand up in the rapids, but go with the flow. So when Amar and I were having this conversation about, you know, how to stay in the boat, you know, versus, you know, what to do when you fall out of the boat, and how people approach that scenario differently. You know, some people in life find it their natural way to go with the flow, right? You may not be that person, but you may know somebody like that. Or, you know, there are the others who, you know, when something is happening, they will fight the flow of it. And that is their disposition. So Amar told me that during his river rafting time, I guess, he asked his guru that question. You know, there are two kinds of people. There are those who will, you know, fight it, and there's those who will flow with it. And what is best? And his guru said, either one is fine, as long as you have God in your heart and on your mind. I really like that answer. Either way is fine, as long as you have God in your heart and in your mind. So it always comes back to that, doesn't it? To just, in this remembrance of truth, or remembrance of our life as being a spiritual life that is in God, that is where we find solace, that's where we find healing, that's where we find joy, that's where we find peace. That's where we find it. So when life becomes challenging, you know, you're going along in your little boat of devotion, and you feel, you know, life, you hit one of those bumps in the road or one of those rapids, and you're tossed out of the boat, you know, what to do when you're in that situation. There's three things I want to share with you. One is, for me, I like to pay attention to what I would call the small graces of divine provision. Pay attention to small graces of divine provision, because they are always there, the ways in which you can sense the beautiful graces of the divine in your life. And you can do this with nature. We heard in Reverend Sundari's message this morning how something occurring in nature lifted up her mind, lifted up her thoughts. And that was there for me when I was in Lakemont. You know, the first journey that I made there to the east, which of course was many, many decades ago, I really like birds. I have a thing about birds. I like them very much. And I saw, the first time I was there, a cardinal a red bird. You know, being a native Californian, I'd never seen one before, and it was so thrilling to me. But what was even more thrilling was that I had the association of being with my guru, of being in this ashram, in this holy place, and this sort of bright messenger that came. And to me at that time it was saying, you know, this is a new experience, this is a new life for you, and had all those beautiful associations. You know, when I was just there for the memorial service, and now when I saw that cardinal, and I would see them when I would go each year, but usually they're up in the trees and you see them kind of flitting around one to the other, and you know, I would be lucky to see one or two when I was there. This time when I was there for the memorial, I was staying in a little kind of basement room underneath the house on ground level. And so in the morning of the memorial, I got up, I was having my prayers, and I looked out. There's like a glass door window that looks out to the ground there. And as I was standing there just reflecting, looking out, a cardinal, a red bird, came right up to the door. So, you know, for me in that moment, that was one of those sweet graces of divine provision. And we all have them. You simply have to be willing to notice them and to claim them and to be grateful for them. So you'll see them in nature. You'll also see them through synchronicity. So on the second day that I was there, I got my courage to walk up to the little chalet that's sort of up on the hill past the meditation hall where my guru lived at one time, but then he kept it years later as his office. So whenever I was there on the grounds, he would come in very, very early in the morning to meditate and to work. And I always just thrilled, you know, to walk by knowing that he was in that space. And always his car, his car would be sitting in the driveway there. And so I didn't really want to walk by there knowing that his car would not be there and that he would not be there. And so I got up my courage and I walked by, and you know, sure enough, the car was not there and the drapes were closed. But I sat there for a while, you know, and just thought about how blessed my life has been, you know, with his teaching and his presence. And I had my cell phone in my back pocket, and the reception is very spotty there, so you kind of have to walk around with your phone if you ever want to get anything, because you have to be in a specific spot at a specific moment in time. There's some mountains there. So I started walking down the hill from being there and just contemplating that whole experience of not seeing him, not seeing his car, his vehicle, right? His earthly vehicle. And as I came down, there was the little ping of a message coming in, and I looked at it, and it was a message from Reverend Vandana, from Reverend Ramos, and she had written me a note that said, you know, when I was there last time, she said, I had the sweetest experience of your guru driving down the hill in his car to meet us. And so she said, I'm just thinking of you, and I want you to know that I feel he's driving down the hill to meet all of us. And she included a photo of him in the car. So, graces of divine provision in nature, in synchronicities, and in the kindness of human beings. So sometimes people will seems like something extraordinary is happening with compassion or kindness that people offer you. So I told you I had to leave right after the memorial to come home for a family emergency. So in Atlanta, the airport it's a hub there, so it's a big airport. There's a lot happening there. And when I went to check in and then go through the security line, the airport is also under construction. So it's even hard to see where you go into security. And there was a woman helping me behind the desk, who checked in my bags, gave me my boarding pass and told me where the gate was. And I said, I can't quite see it from here. Where is it? She said, oh, let me just walk over there with you. So the airline clerk left her post and walked with me to the gate where I needed to enter security. How often does that happen, do you think? Maybe once. If you're in your little boat of devotion and you're paying attention to nature and to synchronicities and to acts of kindness that are coming your way. So the other thing I want to say is that not only do we take in these ways in which we feel the divine is revealing itself to us, but we are always helped when we're in the rapids of life, when we think about how we can help and support and serve and love others. That is really what we are here to do. And it is really what lifts us, of course, out of ourselves and into that experience of divine love and divine grace. So one more thing I will share with you is, so pay attention to those small graces of divine provision. Consider how you can be of service to others. And last, know that whatever is occurring in your life is part of your divine life unfolding. So we are always being loved into our highest good. I'll put it that way. Loved into our highest good. So even when times feel difficult, that is still what is happening. So we are being prepared. We're all here by divine appointment, and we all have our divine mission. And life is always conspiring to support us to be that divine being we are ordained to be, is always preparing us to express that in the highest way. So know that at all times. So whatever is occurring for you is part of your divine preparation. And that helps us to rise up to meet it, to know that we're being divinely called. The other thing that happened in this time was a community member wrote to me and said, there was a psalm that you translated, 10 years ago, or however long it was. Yeah, it was nearly 10 years ago. I'm looking for that. Do you have it? This happens when you're in ministry. Remember that thing you said in 2015? So I didn't, but thank goodness for our search function on the computer. So this was the psalm that I wrote, the interpretation of the 91st Psalm in March of 2000. So I'd like to share that with you in conclusion now. The promise of the spiritual life. One whose mind is immersed in God is constantly protected by the presence of truth. One whose mind is immersed in God is constantly protected by the presence of truth. Say, God is my refuge, my shelter, and my support. In divine consciousness, I place my trust. So I am delivered from the traps of ego and from the clamor of worry. Truth is my protection. I will not fear the dark night of letting go, nor the world's discord that the day's light may bring. I will not fear the dark night of letting go, nor the world's discord that the day's light may bring. Many fall in utter forgetfulness, but it will not overtake me. Divine consciousness is my protection and my home. God's love is my protection and my home. I am supported by the grace, divine inspiration, and guidance that lifts me beyond my limited understanding. Love guides me, answers me, heals me, saves me. Love guides me, answers me, heals me, saves me. That was the request, to bring that one up from the archives. The perfect request. Om.